Now the following game I would like to show you is my game from a rapid tournament in Corsica 2006, my game against Tregubov. And as our match in normal time control in rapid against Tregubov ended 1-1, this was the first blitz game. And it is not usual to show blitz games or to annotate blitz games for books or for DVDs, but I wanted to demonstrate that an endgame technique can also be applied when you have little time, and also can be applied to great use, as in this case. So you see, in this position, the queens are still on the board, and I had to make, nevertheless, endgame related choices, because I can take queen takes d5, probably exchanging queens because white would not like to play on with such a weakness on d4, hanging pawn on a2, and so on. And I would also I also had to choose from other options. That is, I can also exchange rooks with rook c1, and I decided that rook takes c1 was the most promising way to continue. Rook c1, bishop c1, and here again black has to make choice between e takes d5 and queen takes d5. Now, in order to understand why I took queen takes d5, e takes d5, we should take a close look at this rising endgame. Now we should notice that white has a bishop on c1, that is a dark square, and that most of his pawns are on the square of the same color, and that is this means that this bishop is limited in his movement. He's not accessing many diagonals because the pawns are in the way. This is one thing, and also another thing is that the white squares are weakened. This means that if we imagine, let's say now, the black king, for instance, on e4, it is clear that no piece is preventing his further intrusion into white's position. So white would have some weaknesses to take care of, and black has a definite plan of bringing his king around. And I thought this was worth a shot, because also white is forever under pressure because of the weakness of the pawn d4, which has to be protected at all times. So here white's task is not easy at all. That's why I went for this endgame, and we were both very low on time. This was of course a blitz game, and we had some very few minutes or seconds on the clocks, and white had to make some serious strategic decisions, and all of them are connected to some risk. Now, at some point, the structural changes are to be made. As I said, white's pawns on the king side are somehow a weakness. They also can be targeted by the black bishop in the long run. Imagine if these pawns are fixed, then at some point bishop b4, bishop e1 could in fact put all these pawns under serious pressure, also because black can combine this sort of attack with attacking the pawn on d4. So the best way for white should be trying to repair the structure to some extent, and repair in this case means place his pawns on the squares of different colors. That is, the b pawn probably has to go to b3, the f pawn to f3, and the g pawn to g4, and the h pawn to h5. Now these are of course many moves, and they are not so easy to achieve, and it is not clear where to start. Probably white had to start with h5 in order to make black's h5 more difficult. But also here, after g6, for instance hg6, black can take fg6 and then continue with bishop g7, king f7, king e6, king f5, h5, g5, g4. So white is under pressure, but probably should be able to hold. For instance, I'll try to give a sample line. He goes f3, bishop g7, bishop e3, the king comes, and maybe it will be possible to hold a fortress after king g2, h5, and just stand king e6. Okay, allow the black king to come to f5, and play king f2 and ignore simply g5, g4, just standing. Whether this would have been enough for a draw? Probably, but very difficult to assess in quick time control. Maybe it's enough for a draw, maybe not. As I said, white is experiencing difficulties here, and they are not so easy to fight against. So he played b3. Now it is also an understandable move, but probably it was not yet so necessary. Also, it should be noted that the black's formation on the queen side, although looks suspect because of some possible attacks, in fact it is difficult to see the king coming to b4 because of the bishop on f8, and otherwise white doesn't have any other squares from where the king could penetrate black's position. So black is pretty safe there. He goes h5. Now at some point still white had to think about playing f3, and in order to avoid any possible g4s, probably bishop e7, king f2, king h7, and it is not clear to whether it will be enough for a win or not. White will have to stand. Black activates his king, as usually in the endgames, and he follows by a plan of f6 and g5. And after this, white is in serious trouble because he has many pawns that need protection. For instance, after king g2, f6, king f2, g5, king g2, black may follow with bishop b4, bishop c3, bishop e1, trying to attack this pawn. And in short, white probably would have to go for the structure after h takes g5, f takes g5, where black could try to combine the ideas of g4, putting pressure on the pawn g3, and maybe it's a draw. On the other hand, maybe there is some lethal zugzwang, and white would be losing this. So at the moment, white tries to do nothing, but this strategy in fact backfires. He also brought his king around, but as I said, it was more important to take care of the weakness of the light squares. Bishop f4, king f5. Now it is very important that the king has come to f5, because this practically makes the king on f3 immovable, because if king on f3 goes somewhere, then at some point black king starts penetrating into white's weaknesses, and you see that the weakness of light squares, these are not just words with theoretical importance. This is a real danger which is in white's position. So he tries to stand around. Bishop c7. Now black activates his bishop, bishop a3, threatening things like bishop b2, bishop c1, and then followed by f6, g5, g4. You see that with a bishop on c1 and the plan of bringing the pawn to g4 would actually win for the black access to the square e4. You will see how easily this plan is executed. Bishop e5, f6, bishop c7, g5, bishop b2, bishop c1. So basically black deprived white's king of the square e3, and after bishop c5, g4, king e2, king e4, white's position is completely resignable. In fact, he hasn't managed to do anything about the chronic weakness of his structure. Now it has been fixed, and in fact black starts by just collecting all the pawns. It should be noted that after bishop e7, f5, now black has a really ideal position. His king is on e4, and all his pawns are on the light squares, which means they cannot be attacked by the bishop anymore at all, and black can start picking up pawns even without looking at what kind of moves white is making. So he plays bishop f6, bishop b2, bishop takes d4, and the d pawn is activated. I went to d3, and now I play after king e1, white resigns. In fact, the move king e5 as given in the official score was not played, and after king f3, white is collapsing because he's losing, in fact, all the pawns, and black is queening. You see a very instructive example. Strong grandmaster with white pieces was actually not able to cope with difficulties that arose in this simple looking ending. I'm pretty sure you have had similar endings in your practice, and now you see that it is that these endgames are not so innocuous, that white is under pressure and black has a lot of resources to improve his position. And I hope you have improved the understanding of this kind of endgames with this particular example, and we will proceed with some other endgames.